Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose, and I think by this point we all know that Xbox is planning a big year for 2026. Of course, they have their own Xbox Direct next month, and they're already teasing that it won't be quite enough to reveal all of their 2026 lineup. But however, we got another update today from Bethesda, and they at least gave us an idea of what we can expect next year, or maybe even what not to expect in this case. So stick around and we're going to talk all about Xbox's 2026 strategy, and then also plenty more. First though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Larian Studios and the Divinity franchise. Of course, they just announced their next new installment, which I'm not going to include on screen. I've talked about this in a previous video, but YouTube does have a problem with overly graphic games at times, and yeah, that CGI trailer was a little intense, to say the least. So I'm going to show some gameplay for Divinity Original Sin 2 instead, which we're also going to talk about here in just a moment. But first, they have a big update for their next Divinity title. There's been a lot of speculation, including from myself, about if it's going to go in a new direction. Maybe with action-based combat instead. They are saying that it's going to be their biggest game ever, but no, that's actually not the case after all. They just confirmed that it will once again sport turn-based combat, but in their words, it's going to take turn-based combat to the next level. Now, I'm very interested to see what that looks like in action, but for me personally, this is music to my ears. I actually really enjoy turn-based combat. It's one of my favorite genres for that matter, and it's one of the reasons that I've been so thrilled by the genre's success these past few years. Between Baldur's Gate 3 and Expedition 33, the genre has a bright future ahead of it, and these type of games are really kind of proving the AAA game industry a bit wrong. Now, as for Divinity Original Sin 2, though, it also got a big update for current generation consoles, which includes the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series, and also for the Switch 2. This is the new Definitive Edition, which, is really cool to see. This is a great game, but on paper, the big news, I think, is for the Switch 2. You would think that visually it would get the biggest upgrade, and technically maybe it did, but I've already heard a lot of people come away a bit disappointed. Not necessarily because it's flat out a bad upgrade, but rather it's because fans expected a bit more. Its clarity, yes, has improved, but it's still a 30 FPS experience in handheld mode. Now, to be completely fair, it's 60 FPS while docked, so if you do like to play your games docked instead, there is that. But even still, it is a free update. So what I'd say is that the update itself isn't necessarily enough to sell the game on its own accord, but ultimately, it still makes it a better experience than what it was on the Switch 1, and also, it's really just a good game. So if you haven't already played it, and if you just really want a handheld version, then maybe check it out for the Switch 2. Now, speaking of the Switch 2, though, we also got some cool updates for the Hollow Knight series. On one side, Silksong has been a massive success as expected. They just announced that it sold 7 million units, and that doesn't even include Game Pass numbers, which they also confirmed reached millions of players on its own. So, we're probably talking about north of 10 million players by this point, which for an independent game, really that came from a small studio, is beyond incredible. Honestly, AAA games dream of those type of numbers. But the thing that I really liked about this announcement is that there's no trying to sugarcoat its numbers. It's become a theme from some of these bigger AAA studios. Instead of revealing how many units a game sold, they point to players instead, which can be very misleading in terms of realized success. The gaslighting from the industry is a very real thing by this point, so when we get real numbers like this, I very much appreciate it. However, Silksong was in development for a very long time. I think we all know that, and the reason I point that out is because there might be a lot of new players that haven't played the first game. So if you're among that crowd, and if you have a Switch 2, then you're in luck, because they just announced a free upgrade for Hollow Knight. Yeah, the Switch 2 version will include high frame rate modes, higher resolution, and additional graphical effects. Again, it is free, and it is a great game, so definitely go check it out when it launches in 2026. Oh, and for you Tales of fans out there, sounds like 2026 could be loaded with some new game announcements. Now, this comes directly from the series producer, and while talking about some of their recent remasters, he promised that unlike some of those, that 2026 will have reveals of remasters from the older titles instead. See, the thing about the Tales of series is that some of their more recent remasters like Berseria and Xillia, as two such examples, are from relatively newer titles. Xillia is from the PS3 generation, technically a part of the PS4 generation as well, and of course Berseria released last generation on a PlayStation 4. Now, I am glad to see those games get remastered because now they're going to be available for more platforms, but if you wanted to play some of their older games that maybe you missed out on in the past, well, it sounds like they are going to do some of that in 2026, which, I mean, either which way, it kind of feels like they're going to basically re-release almost every Tales of game in their back catalog, new and old. I mean, they're definitely full steam ahead for their Tales of Remaster project, and 2026 will be no different. All right, now let's go talk about Xbox, though, and the expectations the fans should have going into 2026. I mean, they've already announced a Direct for January where they're going to reveal a lot of their games, and I know they say this almost every single year, but I actually do believe that this time, 2026 has the potential to be Xbox's biggest year and most exciting year ever from a software point of perspective. I mean, we can already pencil in Halo Campaign Evolved, Gears of War E-Day, Forza Horizon 6, and Fable. Now, could one of those games get delayed? Yeah, sure, anything's possible, but as of this recording, those 4 games are expected to release in 2026, and from a fan's perspective, that's already a loaded lineup because they are legitimately fan favorites for longtime Xbox fans. I mean, these are the pillar franchises that made Xbox fans fall in love with the brand back during the OG Xbox and Xbox 360 days. So I'd say these 4 games alone are worth the hype of their quote-unquote biggest year ever. But I think there's also a few other games that are worth paying attention to. I think they're going to have some surprises, one being Clockwork Revolution. Now, I say that for a few different reasons. One is that we've already gotten a few fairly significant gameplay trailers, and to me, that's a very good sign that it's been progressing well and that it's preparing for a somewhat soonish launch. In fact, not all that long ago, it was discovered that somebody on LinkedIn claimed that it would launch in 2026. So that could be yet another big release for them. But also, Activision's IP could come into play next year. And I'm not just talking about Call of Duty. I mean, of course, they're going to release another Call of Duty. That's not really news. But Spyro 4, on the other hand, that absolutely is. I mean, fans have been begging for a new Spyro for decades by this point, and there have been a lot of rumors, and a lot of evidence for that matter, that Toys for Bob is working on a brand new Spyro game, and that it could be ready as early as 2026. Now, if that were to happen, I'm not necessarily expecting an announcement come next month. Rather, I think it's more likely to be at the Xbox Summer Showcase, or maybe even with just a random announcement like what happened this past year with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4. I mean, it's hard to say because Activision does operate a bit different than Xbox, but that's already 6 incredibly exciting games that Xbox could reveal for 2026. And by the way, all gamers should be excited because, as we kind of now know, a lot of these games could end up being multi-platform. You know, this is a very different Xbox brand than in years past. However, you may have noticed that I haven't mentioned Bethesda yet. Well, interestingly, Todd Howard was asked about The Elder Scrolls 6 today. You know, there are still people out there that are holding out hope that it could get its re-reveal in the nearest future. I mean, for that matter, I mean, people were hoping that it was going to be at the Game Awards, which, of course, didn't happen. But here's what Todd Howard had to say about Elder Scrolls 6. He said that it's progressing really well. The majority of the studio's on 6, but I'll say this, we always overlap. So we're very used to overlapping development, and we have long pre-productions on things so that we feel good about them. And it's a process. We all wish it went a little bit faster or a lot faster, but it's a process that we want to get right. Now, people are interpreting this statement in different ways, and they're pegging all kinds of different release windows to it because of what he said here. But let me just say this. It wasn't all that long ago when Todd also said that he likes to release his games close to when it gets a trailer. So, and this is just my prediction, but I'm not expecting the Elder Scrolls 6 to release in 2026. I'm expecting 2027 or maybe even possibly later than that. So I'm not expecting a reveal early in the year, nor am I expecting a reveal at their Xbox Summer Showcase. I think that if it does get revealed in 2026, then late in the year would be the most likely. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I definitely think that fans should temper their expectations for a soonish announcement. Now, however, there are other Bethesda games that could get a surprise reveal. You know, they do have a lot of different studios, a lot of games that we probably don't even know about, and then there's other games like Arcane. You know, they're working on Blade, and then there's also been a lot of rumors about a Fallout 3 remaster. Now, that's actually a game that I think is a lot more likely. It was leaked years ago among other games like Doom the Dark Ages and, of course, the Oblivion remaster. So I don't really question its existence. It's more of a matter of when it's going to come out, and I think 2026 could actually happen. Now, I will say, though, that I hope that when it does eventually release, I hope it performs better than the Oblivion remaster. Like, these games are just far too good to come out with bad performance. But, I mean, you know, I guess we'll see. Regardless, though, I think you can easily see how Xbox could actually have their quote-unquote biggest year ever. Yeah, their consoles might not necessarily be in a great place right now, but in terms of software, they truly are in the best position that they've ever been, and I think 2026 could put that on full display. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you think Xbox will have their biggest year ever, or do you think it will be a disappointment? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.